Right, so I thought I'd show you some Sony Vegas render settings for doing things like screen recordings and gameplay mostly. I mean, I suppose you can kind of use it for straight up video recording as well, so if you're recording via a camera, but this is kind of more optimized for video recording, so for gameplays and for just straight up stuff like this as well. So, we're going to our properties window of Vegas. Right. So, we're going to base our the properties for this project. We're going to base it on a template, which is this template here, which is the 1080, the HD 1080 60i, 2997 frame rate bidding is. This actual copy of Vegas is just reset. So everything you see here is what you should see if you start from scratch. So if you had like a fresh installation of Sony Vegas, this is what you should see. So top bit's all done. We don't need to worry about any of this. Just make sure that the width is 1920 and the height is 1080. This is if you're going to do full HD. If you're not going to do full HD, then you want to do 720 maybe. Then you're probably going to be using that one down there, so the 2997. Because, well, just what you want to be using really. So, we've done that. So, what do we do when we get down to here? Because we need to change some of these settings. Well, picture format. Now, I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert in this, but because I haven't the foggiest idea what picture format actually means from a technical standpoint. But what I can tell you is whatever pixel format you use, make sure it's the same throughout. So, if you use 8-bit in all your videos, make sure you use 8-bit. If you use 8-bit in a project, make sure you use 8-bit in all your videos, because the brightness and contrast settings change. Well, they don't change, they stay the same, but the output from the brightness and contrast settings doesn't look the same. So if you set the brightness and contrast settings using 8-bit and then change to 32, it kind of changes. And I'll show you that later on. But I'm going to stick with 32-bit flame point, because when I do standard video recording, so when I sit in front of a camera, this kind of corrects the brightness and contrast without me having to go into the brightness and contrast settings. So it kind of like makes it look nicer. So I can leave that as is. Full resolution rendering quality, set that to best because we can, because it needs to be. De-interlace method, well, motion blur type, ignore that, don't worry about that. Just keep it as Gaussian, don't touch it. De-interlace method, set that to none because we don't want to do any de-interlacing, it doesn't matter. Hit apply. One thing I've forgotten to mention, or I've neglected to mention, is this. Frame rate here, if you're using Fraps, make sure that 2997 is here in your custom video capture settings, because you can't import it if you don't set it like that. For some reason, well, I couldn't import it anyway, I don't know what you can. But when I went to import it in anything other than 2997, so 30 frames a second or 60 frames a second, I had to convert it to an MP4 or some other format and then import it into Vegas, and it just didn't look nice. So, yeah, just a bit of a heads up there. So I'm going to hit OK. Now, I'm going to just drag in some BS gameplay. This is just from Future Soldier, Ghost Recon Future Soldier, which is an amazing game, which I'll probably do just a sort of an initial review of today as well. But yeah, so this is a bit of BS here. So, I'll show you about the brightness and contrast settings with the pixel thing in a minute, but I'm going to just change the brightness and contrast settings. So if we go into Video Event Effects and double click Sony brightness and contrast, hit OK, and I believe I just usually change it to something like minus 0.2 or 0.02, so minus 0.02, and it changes it slightly and it looks a bit better. This scene overall is quite a bright scene, so which is why the brightness and contrast settings sort of look better with that. If it was something a bit darker, I would probably set the brightness. I'd probably leave the brightness as it is. But because it's quite a light scene, I'm not going to worry too much about it. So let's go back to the beginning so you can actually see the actual proper. So if I go into properties and then change 32-bit to 8-bit and hit apply, watch what happens to that picture. That picture's just gone slightly brighter. So I go back to 32 and hit apply. It's gone dark again. That's basically what you need to worry about. I mean, it's the same with filters as well. Filters look different with 8-bit and 32-bit. So just if you're using any filters or funky filters, just make sure you sort of test them out in both formats beforehand. So I don't know anything about pixel format. I haven't the foggiest idea. All I know is it changes that. It just makes things just look different. Which makes me sound like a noob. So now we're going to go and actually go into render. We're going to render our video after you edit it together and all that other shizlet. We're going to render it in a WMV format just because it looks nicer, it seems to play better, and it's just easier to sort of play around with some of the settings. Before we do anything like that though, we're going to go and stretch the video to fill because of pixel resolutions and blah blah blah. We're going to go into here, we're going to go customize templates. So this is 8 megabits HD, 1080, 30p or 30 frames a second. If you're doing like a 720, you can do that one. So there you go. So we're going to go customize, leave the audio alone unless you know what you're doing. It doesn't really matter anyway, it's going to be fine anyway for what we want to use it for. So we're going to go into our video now. Here it's actually set as a 1440 by 1080. Now that isn't actually a screen resolution, that's a pixel resolution. So 1440 by 1080 is not as good as 1920 by 1080. So if we go keep the original size, it puts at 1920 by 1080. I'm going to also put this to 1. Don't know why, but it just makes things look better. Pixel aspect ratio, basically the pixels are square as opposed to slightly not square, and I don't know too much about that either, but it just makes things look nicer. Frame rate, leave it as 2997, that's fine. And whack this up to sharpest. You can keep it on 90. I like to just whack it up sharpest because we much like and can. Now, bitrate. This is the bit that makes the huge difference. Right, it's currently set to 8, which is fine, it's okay, but we're going to double that and put it up to 16. Just because it makes it look nicer. So bitrate is one of those things that basically the higher the number, the better the quality. Obviously, there's only so much quality you can get from something, but it does make things look nicer. And yeah, it just makes it look nice, especially for stuff like YouTubey stuff. But yeah, it just makes it look nicer and better. And but it also does push up your file size. Your own file size will be higher because it's a higher bitrate. So for every second of video played, you're going to have 16 meg for a second of video. So that's basically what that means. It does say down here kbps and mbps, which is megabits a second. So there'll be 16 megabits for every second of video. So that's slightly different from a megabyte, because a megabyte is there's 1024 bits in a byte. That's all you need to know. So it'll be, yeah. I'm not going to go into that, it's just, you know, confusing. Index, don't have to worry about. Project, it says use project settings, but we're just going to hit best because just to double check, we've made sure that even though our project does say best, we're going to make sure that it is best. And we're going to hit OK. And then basically, we're just going to go and render it, and then we're done. So yeah, that's it. I mean, that should be all there is to it. Hopefully you've liked the video, and hopefully it's useful to you. If you've got any more questions, chuck them in the comments and I'll try and help out as much as I can. I don't claim to be an expert in Sony Vegas, but I've used it a lot, and it's kind of my product of choice for editing video because it's so powerful. I mean, I've not ever tried out iMovie, and I've never tried Final Cut, but I kind of want to get into that, but I've not got a Mac, so it's kind of like theme and what's it. So that is kind of it. Obviously, like, subscribe, comment, and I shall catch you in a later video.